I refused to shave my head for a friend's relative, so he waited until I passed out drunk at a party and did it himself, and now his family is begging me to drop the charges. For context, a close friend of mine, we'll call him Gary, has a relative who contracted cancer. I, mid-20s male, was sympathetic and even contributed $100 to a donation pool for their treatment. But Gary came to me one day and took his hat off to reveal a freshly shaven head. He told me that everyone in his family were doing it in support of his relative, and so were a lot of our mutual friends. Then he asked that I get on the bandwagon. I told him I didn't want to shave my head because I like my hair. My hair is black, regularly combed and well styled. He said I could just get a wig or something and had actually brought his shaver kit. He was unboxing it when I told him this was not happening. I don't even really know his relative that he's doing this for. So I'm not doing it, end of discussion. He called me a jerk and left pretty angrily. We didn't speak for a week. Then last Saturday I got invited to a party at another close friend's house. There I found out that Gary had tried the same thing on several other friends, and only a couple of them actually did shave their heads. Gary wasn't at the party, so I had a blast hanging out, playing video games and listening to rock music, but I had way too much to drink and couldn't drive home, so they said I could just sleep upstairs. I passed out on a bed and it was a blissful sleep till I was shaken awake by another friend who told me Gary had showed up late and they caught him shaving my head while I was passed out. I saw what I looked like in a mirror and wanted to scream like I was in a horror movie. Gary even shaved off one of my eyebrows. Gary was still there and acting proud of himself, saying now you're gonna have to shave off the rest, just like me. LOL. I was furious and called the cops. When they got there, Gary fully admitted to what he had done to me and even said he was justified. The police didn't seem to think so, as this is classified as a form of assault. They asked me if I wanted to press charges and the first words out of my mouth were hell yes. Gary cussed me out while they took him away in cuffs. I tried getting my hair restyled into something presentable, but there was no saving it, and now I'm bald too. Now a bunch of Gary's family are telling me to drop the charges because Gary was off his meds and didn't mean to do it. I was like, what the heck? Because I never knew he was on meds. But I still refuse to drop the charges. It'll take months to grow my hair back the way it was. But all of the calls and messages from Gary's relatives are starting to get to me. Just about everyone else in our friend group has cut Gary out though and say that I'm doing the right thing by not dropping the charges. So now I'm divided. Am I actually wrong for pressing charges on a former friend for shaving my head in my sleep? I'm pissed. Edit. I want to make something clear here. So many people have said things like, dude, it's just hair. But would they all be saying that if I wasn't a man? What if I was some girl that had hair that took years to grow? Would they be saying the same thing? Sure, hair grows back, but it takes time. If it was something that grew back fast, people would be less inclined to care. But it's not fast. It takes months. And for some who had long hair, years. That's a lot of time wasted growing. And I don't plan on pushing for Gary to go to prison, but I don't plan to drop the charges either. His family already bailed him out. And while I didn't know he was on meds, I knew he had quite the temper, and even an entitled attitude at times. One example being a lunch where he wanted us all to combine the check and split it evenly. He got the most expensive thing on the menu. I got a cheeseburger. When we all said no, Gary went off on us for not being good friends. He's always been a jerk when he doesn't get his way, and I've only known him for like 3 years. This incident was the last straw for not just me, but a lot of other mutual friends. As for the charges, I don't want to send Gary to prison, but I would like him to get some therapy and community service. With the way Gary has acted around me in the past, and what he did to me, I actually wonder how long before he got more violent. I've seen and heard of him getting in fights for less. Edit number 2. I've gotten many comments from people saying you're the jerk. He has cancer. If you actually read what I posted, Gary is not the one with cancer. A relative of his I don't know does, and no, I don't know what kind of cancer. Gary didn't elaborate. He wanted me to shave my head for this person. And when I refused, he left in a tantrum. Then shaved my head while I was passed out drunk at a party. That's literally insane. Relevant comments. Commenter, but did you shave the other eyebrow to even out the regrowth? OP, unfortunately yes, I had to. Commenter number 2, you're not the jerk. Being off meds may be a reason, but it's never an excuse, and that was definitely assault. In fact, if you haven't already told the police, make sure they know that Gary previously asked you to get on the bandwagon, said he'd shave it for you while unpacking his equipment, but you refused and he verbally assaulted you. He knew you didn't and wouldn't consent, but did it anyway while you were unconscious. OP, the police know every detail about Gary that I've given here, save for his family harassing me, which I intend to tell the police about as soon as possible. OP, in regards to if his other friends knew about this, my friends all want nothing to do with Gary anymore. They didn't egg him on. They had no idea he was going to do what he did. Commenter number 2, actually if you're going to talk to the DA, they may be able to offer him a plea where he needs to stay on meds or go in treatment. OP, I already figured not much was going to happen since I wasn't harmed other than my hair. Whatever deal he takes in court, if he gets one, won't really matter to me. What does matter to me though is that this process makes him realize just how badly he screwed up. Meds or no meds. Commenter number 3, how did he get into the house? You're 100% not the jerk and should press charges. But who let him into that house? It was someone else's place, and I am assuming he either came in super late or early in the morning. The reason I am asking is that in addition to Gary, someone let him into the house, and I would be interested to know the reasoning. OP, Gary got in because they let him in. They figured his tangent about hair was over. He tried to convince a bunch of them to shave their heads like he did to me. And none of the people there let him do it. My guess is he singled me out because I was passed out. If not me, it could have been anyone else there if they'd passed out drunk instead. Update, 1 year later, a friend of mine just showed me a video yesterday in which my old post had been read. Honestly, I'd nearly forgotten about it since I was only there to ask if I was the jerk or not. But I thought I'd give a little update in this subreddit since entitled spells out Gary pretty well. Other than the shaving incident, he tried to get us to partially pay for his food multiple times by combining the check and dividing it equally when he always got the most expensive thing on the menu, and once even pulled the I forgot my wallet bit. He was described as a neckbeard by multiple people, including women he flirted with. He tried to get a married neighbor woman that was older than him to have an affair with him, and then later egged her apartment door when she refused. That one I only learned about a couple months after my original post. And no, Gary never saw consequences for doing that. I also learned he stole several video games and DVDs from friends, mooched food and drink out of their fridges, and even went through a period as a squatter for 2 months by refusing to leave a house he'd been let into by a former tenant, and the landlord actually paid him to leave. Gary's also an extreme hypocrite that contradicted himself more than a corrupt politician. For example, one minute he'd be anti-vax, the next he'd be complaining about other people who weren't getting the COVID-19 vaccine. Pretty sure he never got it too. I can't believe I ever had any sympathy for this man. To recap a bit, I mentioned that Gary's family harassed me and tried to make me drop the charges. I not only didn't drop the charges, but I reported the harassment to the police. Only problem is it didn't bloody stop. In fact, it got worse. Mainly from Gary's mother, whom I can see where Gary got his charming personality from. She showed up to my apartment a couple of weeks after the shaving incident to scream at me that I knew nothing about what they were going through. And a little hair wasn't a big deal. I told her my hair was a big deal to me. And what Gary did was inexcusable. Well, that earned me a slap on the face, followed by a swift kick to the nuts, followed by a few more kicks to my body after I went down. It was all recorded by a camera that I had watching the front door. Landlord wouldn't let me put in a Ring doorbell cam. One of my neighbors saw her, and screamed at her that they'd be calling police. Gary's mom ran, and I ended up going to the hospital with minor injuries. Mostly just bruises, a black eye, and a sore groin. Also, the injury report was nice to have. Gary's mother got arrested, and I filed a lawsuit against her for attacking me. I saw her in court twice for both her assault on me, and the lawsuit I filed for her assault. This woman had taken several self-defense classes over the years, so she knew how to fight. That had the judge consider her a trained individual, and she was sentenced to 6 months in jail, given 2 years probation, and ordered to pay my medical bills. She actually cried to the judge about the money, but he wasn't having it. It took some time to see her in court again for my lawsuit against her as she was out of jail by then. I was awarded $10,000 for the harassment, emotional damages, and lost work hours, and she had to pay all court and lawyer fees. Which she cried about again because she didn't want to pay anything to the man who'd ruined her and her son's lives. But she had the money for both court cases, because she had no problem paying. But around that time, I heard Gary's relative with cancer passed away. I don't know any details, just that they passed on. I admit that was sad, but I never knew this person. But Gary made their condition his hill to die on when he tried to make an example out of me. Gary got some probation and community service for what he did to my hair. And he cut contact with our entire friend group and eventually moved away. Where to? I don't know. I don't care either. As for my hair, well, it grew back just fine. Took nearly half a year to get it back how it was. My boss had me put out of sight for a while, and I was wearing a hat everywhere for at least a month. I did take that $10,000 I got in the lawsuit and combined it with my savings for a down payment on a house. So I've since moved into a much better abode. I also have a girlfriend now that's living with me. It was a bit soon for her to move in, but there were extenuating circumstances. We're making it work though, and I'm happy. More relevant comments. Commenter, here's the thing, as a man, you are reluctant to fight back against a woman, but she's no lady either. Don't ever just let someone slap and kick you because you refuse to fight back. Also, did the mother shave her head? OP. No. She didn't shave her head. Unless she had a wig on, which I doubt. I don't know how many people in Gary's family did shave their heads because his mother was one of his only relatives I saw in person since the shaving incident. Otherwise all the harassment was online and over the phone. And yes, I was reluctant to strike back, but that old woman was faster than she looked. And that shooting pain from being kicked in the nuts is something I never want to feel again.